Quick play.
My god, that music is just so fucking good. Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Quick Play, a Retrotopia podcast where we take a look at some of the smaller games in our collection and give them a little bit of love. Like the sliver of health I had left after most of these boss fights, consider this a sliver of Retrotopia to get you through the middle of the week. My name's Alan, sometimes erroneously referred to as the Gentleman of Retrotopia, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Alisia Dragoon for the Sega Mega Drive, or if you prefer, Genesis. Before I get into all of that, of course, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can find all of our social medias and Discord at linktree/Retrotopia. That's link.tr. No, wait, is it? linktr.ee/Retrotopia. That's the one, got there in the end. You can come and talk to Sam, Brian and I and come and discuss all things gaming related and generally have a good time. Before I get into the subject of the day, I of course want to take the time to thank you for listening to this episode, because if you are listening to this quick play, well, that means you've taken the plunge and become one of our Patreon members, and from Sam, Brian and I would just like to say we love you. So, Alisia Dragoon is one of those games that, now I'm a big fan of the Sega Mega Drive, the Sega Genesis, and it's one of the systems that I love collecting for, and this was a game that turned up on quite a few of those hidden gem for the systems list, so I just figured, oh fuck it, let's have a go and see what it's all about. And I have to say, I was very, very pleasantly surprised. So without further ado, let's delve into our game chat. As Baldur, the prince of all things evil, nears the end of his dormancy, the cocoon in which he rests is transported to Earth by his aide, Orna. The world is still recovering from the devastating effects of Baldur's last visit. Alisia Dragoon is the daughter of the magician who attempted to stop Baldur. When she was a child, Alicia's father was tortured to death before her very eyes. His final cries of agony ring in her ears even now. Inexplicably, Alicia's life was spared. She is now a woman with magical powers rivaling that of her father. Baldur is going to wish he'd killed me as well, she vows. Alisia must find Orna and the cocoon before Baldur awakens, use her thunder magic to demolish enemies, and summon any one of the 4 friendly monsters to help you. If Baldur awakens before you can destroy the cocoon, there may be no more tomorrow. Okay, so Alisia Dragoon was released for the Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis in 1992. It was developed by Game Arts and published by Sega. It's an action platformer of a sort. It almost has a run and gun feel to it. Kind of a slow one compared to some of the others, but that's definitely the impression that I got from it. In it, you play as Alisia, a lightning-throwing mage who has got to traverse 8 stages worth of enemies in order to take her revenge. And yeah, so the attack pattern is very interesting in so much as you press the attack button and Alisia will throw out bolts of lightning, which will pretty much hit just about any enemy that she's facing at the time. And as long as you hold the button down, you are pretty much consistently throwing this lightning out. And if you're facing in the right direction, you're almost guaranteed to hit just about anything. You might think that sounds easy, except what the game does is that it constantly throws enemies at you from any side of the screen, which means that you do have to really dial in and sort of keep an eye on where things are coming from, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed quite quickly. Added to the fact that the longer you hold down the attack button, the quicker you will run out of magical power. The good thing is, of course, is that if you just take your time and allow that bar to recharge, it will do so without you needing to do anything. When the magical power is full, you're able to do a full call it a screen sweep of lightning, which will kill just about any enemy that's on the screen. So there is certainly an element of risk and reward. Do you constantly fire an attack and try and clear these enemies, or can you dodge and wait for a bit to allow your bar to recharge so that you can do one of these full screen attacks? Really, really interesting gameplay mechanic, which I found very unique, and it did take some getting used to. But once you do, you're away. So you work your way through 8 levels with absolutely heaps of enemies, some really interesting bosses. And in order to make things slightly easier for you, one of my favorite mechanics in this game are the basically you have summon monsters. So there are what, four, I think? One, two, three, four summon monsters that you carry with you at all times, and you can at any point pause the game, cycle through them, and set them as basically a little beastie that will follow you around. They all have a variety of different attacks. For instance, there's a dragon, which spits fireballs. There's a boomerang lizard, which, funnily enough, throws boomerangs. A thunder raven, which will do a big crashing thunder attack that will basically clear the entire screen. And a ball of fire, which is a ball of fire, which, as soon as it comes into contact with enemies, it does them damage. All of which have certain pros and cons to them. So some of the more powerful creatures, like the dragon, spits very powerful fireballs, but is quite big and can take damage quite easily. The Thunder Raven does a fantastically powerful screen clearing attack, but it takes a while for it to charge, and in that time it can take damage. So you can lose your creatures as you go through the game. So I found that you do have to use them quite tactically, because especially where it comes to the bosses, a lot of them have certain advantages over others, and finding out what creature works best for what boss, what creature works best for what level, or even if you want to use any of them at all, can add a really nice layer of strategy to the game. So I really, yeah, I think it's one of the best features in the game, frankly. As you work through the game, obviously, as with any action platformer, there are lots of items to get. Your usual health, potions, extra lives. You can find revives for your monsters. And level ups. If you go off the beaten path, you can find level ups for Alicia's health, for the monster's health, and lightning level up, so your attack gets more powerful. All sorts of things like that. And as you find these items, especially for the monsters, you really have to think about, okay, well, which one of these beasts do I want to level up first? You get about 3 levels per monster, but whatever monster you have out when you grab the level up, that's the one that will level up. So I did find myself at times, I'd have, say, my level 3 dragon out, and I'd find a level up for the monsters, and I'd grab it without thinking. And I was just like, well, that's wasted now because I'm already at full power with this one. What I should have done is swapped out, got the level up, and that way everything levels up nicely. So it does make you think. Very surprisingly deep gameplay, and at the same time very intuitive, because a lot of these things, all you need to do is a quick pause, choose your monster for the situation, unpause, and you're away. There's very little slowdown, very little slowdown across the board, really, which is surprising considering A, how detailed everything, and B, how much is going on at the screen at any given time. Really, really interesting game. Hard to describe. It's something you really do have to try. But there we are. I did my best. Musically, I mean, you've heard a couple of tracks already. I mean, it's not the greatest music on the Mega Drive, fair enough, but I think it could definitely give a lot of other games a run for their money. You've heard a couple of tracks already, but it definitely has a very fitting fantasy feel, which, try saying that 10 times fast, definitely fits the style of gameplay very, very well. I found it kind of reminiscent of something like the Golden Axe games. So not as maybe advanced as some of the music would become on the system, but definitely they did the most that they could with what they had at the time. Really, really good music. Um, the sound effects are great, although I have to say, every time Alicia gets hit, and you will get hit a lot, she lets out this little yelp, which does get a bit annoying after a while, but certainly not a deal breaker, but I could have done with a bit less of that. Visually, though, this game is stunning, absolutely stunning. The color palette pops beautifully. The shading and highlights really add depth to everything, and the character and enemy sprites are very, very well detailed. And character design in general is strikingly unique. A lot of the bosses and monsters and what have you are very, very striking, very, again, very unique. Short of something like Alien Soldier, there's very few boss designs I've found that were quite as grisly as this one. So, very effective use of visuals there. As I played through the game, I have to admit, at first, when I didn't really know what I was doing, I did find it quite difficult. The game throws a lot at you right out of the gate, and it does expect you to explore off of the beaten path to find some of these extra items to level everything up. Because if you just go left to right and try and beat your way through the game, you will have a bad time of it the further in you get. But as you level up, as you learn the mechanics of the game, it it presents a nice, I think, fair difficulty curve. I mean, it presents itself like a run and gun, but if you treat it like a run and gun, it will fuck you up. It's a decent challenge, but as I said, once you realise you need to take your time, play with either fully charging your magic or just continuously attacking and sort of weighing up the strategies there and using the summon monsters most effectively, it definitely gets much easier. I died a lot playing the game, but I never thought it was unfair. You know, you do take a lot of damage due to the huge amount of enemies, but you have a lot to give, so it kind of balances out. Unless, of course, you're on the bosses. I mean, they will chew through you pretty quickly, but just your standard enemies, you can take a beating before your game over. It's very, a very smooth and satisfying difficulty curve. You know, it's tough, but I wouldn't say it's bullshit. Um, the only point I really struggled with, there's a boss on level, ooh, 4, 5, 6 even, my goodness. Um, and I haven't gone into too much about the levels and the bosses, although they are all fantastic and detailed. There's a lot of variation, actually. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, let's talk about the levels. So you start off in a temple and work your way through a swamp, a zeppelin, a mountain, a cave, a spaceship, a palace in the sky, and then a sanctum where you fight Orna and Baldur for the final boss fight. And all of the levels are very rich, very detailed, very different. There's a good amount of variation here. So it definitely, nothing feels boring as you play. So one of the bosses, though, the gun wizard, which is a wizard with a gun, absolutely fantastic. I think it's on level 6 inside the crashed spaceship. And there's a lot of very, very detailed background movement. You're in a very, very tiny space, and you've got this wizard flying around, and he's summoning guns, and they're firing at you, and it gets very difficult to see what's going on. So I died on that quite a few times, and that is as close as the game got to quote unquote bullshit. But again, once I locked in, looked, made sure I paid attention to what I was doing, had the correct summon monster, it all became a lot easier. So a difficult game, but a fair one. Okay, so that was an awful lot of information all in one go, but I think it's about time to get into the review of this thing. So, positives. Well, I mean, pretty much everything I just said. You know, it looks gorgeous, the music's great, the gameplay is fun and engaging. There's a good amount of challenge for those who like that sort of thing. It's just all round a very surprisingly good game. There's a lot to like going on here. Negatives, not many. I mean, I could hear an argument that the music could be a touch more advanced, although, you'll have heard a few now, and I think you can agree the music absolutely slaps, so it's a stretch calling that a negative. The enemy respawn can be very unforgiving. So if you kill an enemy and then back up just a little bit and then go forward, they will respawn pretty much instantly. So there's not a lot of time to rest here. You really need to be paying attention. Again, not sure if that's a negative in so much as just representative of the style of gameplay. Um, but yeah, as you can tell, I'm really struggling to find anything bad to say about this game. Except for the Alicia's constant yelps when she gets hit. That's all there is really. Um, so I think I will go ahead and give this thing a score. Very, very happy with this game. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's the very definition of a hidden gem. Just one of those games you've probably never heard of, but is well worth giving a try because it is genuinely, genuinely a good time. Very short. I think I finally, with the run I did beat it on, I think was probably about 45 minutes to an hour. Once you know what you're doing, you can get through it pretty quickly, but incredibly, incredibly satisfying. It's on the Nintendo Switch Online, the Mega Drive collection there. You've probably seen it and breezed past it, and I'm here to say go and have another look. Check it out. It's a good time. And that's everything, guys. So, once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being Patreons and believing in Sam, Brian, and I. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. I'm going to go off now and play some more games. I might take another run at Alisia Dragoon. You never know. But until next time, guys, take care and game on.
I love video games.